This is our main restaurant for the hotel, Maori and Cotton. We reopened this space in 2017 as a modern American restaurant, focusing on high quality ingredients, using old school cooking techniques, cooking over fire, grilling, roasting, curing, pickling. So lots of depth of flavor in this restaurant, okay? This is our oven station, so this is where we cook flatbreads, we roast pheasants, we roast whole sea bass in this oven. Well, my main responsibility as executive chef is to make sure that the quality of the product coming in the door and that gets to the guests is of high quality, of course, because we're a 5-star, 5-diamond hotel, and the expectations here are high. So team development, menu strategy, menu planning, menu development, and just hiring and leading the team to ensure that the end product is of high quality and where it needs to be. I mean, we have nine kitchens on property, ranging from a European cafe to modern American to a modern French steakhouse. We have the Phoenician Tavern, which is a local restaurant that focuses on local brews and approachable food. We have a Mediterranean restaurant by the pool called Calio Kebabari. So we have a wide range of product offerings here at the Phoenician. So I graduated from New England Culinary Institute from Vermont. I grew up in kind of the Boston area, that New England area. So, and right out of school, I actually came to the Phoenician right just after it opened, a few years after it opened in the early 90s. And this is kind of where my career started, quite frankly. And back then, the Phoenician was so far ahead of its time. I mean, they were bringing in products from all over the world, and back in the day, that's kind of how the Phoenician got itself started on the map as a food and beverage destination, not just a resort, not just a place to visit and relax, but also a food and beverage destination. Really started when it first opened back in the late 80s, early 90s. We've had several chefs come through here that were James Beard Award winners, and that's where my career started. So I was bred here, so to speak, and this is kind of where my career started. And from there, I was able to work in independent restaurants, and then I got back into hotels and was able to build my career and travel across the country, in Florida and Connecticut, and North Carolina and Wisconsin, and was able to make my way back here. My goal was always to come back to the Phoenician and lead the food and beverage program here, and here I am. So.
And you worked at Mary Lane's?
It was about 12 or 13 years ago. Mary Lane's was one of a kind. A lot of great talent and chefs that had worked up there. Alex Strada to be one of them. That one of my mentors, and everything has a shelf life. And Mary Lane's, for as great as it was, had a shelf life. And now we have Jean Georges Steakhouse, which is a really, really fantastic steakhouse, focusing on high quality products, high quality steaks and seafood. And Chef Jacques Quallin is an amazing chef. He trained under Chef Daniel Baloud and Jean Georges, so the pedigree is there, and it's not your average steakhouse, that's for sure. And it's one of a kind. One thing that makes him and his restaurant great is his unwillingness to bend and flex on quality. I mean, he is a stickler for quality, and what comes in the back door is very, very important. And if it doesn't meet his standard, he doesn't accept it and he doesn't serve it. So this is the garde manger station. So this is where all the salads and the desserts are kind of prepped and prepared and served to the restaurant in in-room dining. So when the guests come and they want to eat in in-room dining, this is kind of where all the salads and the desserts are prepped and prepared. Well, on any given day, we can have anywhere from 15 to 30 cooks in this kitchen alone. We have when we're fully staffed, the team at the property, the culinary team is about around 100. We do local weddings and local catering events, as well as taking care of the business traveler and hosting large groups. And making sure that their needs are met as well. So this is a big kitchen. So this is the hotline. This is Chef Danielle. So Chef Danielle is the chef here at Mount. We serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner out of this kitchen. So your stations range from hot appetizer to middle saute station to grill station. On busy nights we'll have a vent station. You saw the oven station out front. So on any given day, we have 6, 7, 8 cooks working here at nighttime, taking care of the guests. For breakfast time, obviously, we sell a lot of eggs, so we have a couple egg cooks. So this is the hotline. And,
this looks huge to me.
yeah, it's almost too big, but there's a lot going on. We'll show you the backside too, where all the production is done. So there's 2 parts to every kitchen. You have a production area, and then you have an execution area. This area right here, where the expediter sits, and then the cooks are cooking. This is where the execution happens. So when guests come to the restaurant and they place their order, the tickets come in. Within 8 to 10 minutes, the goal is to get the food from the kitchen executed to the guest on the table. Okay, so we'll go into the back and see the production area. So this is the production area. Okay, so this is where all the cold food preps and the sauces and the soups are made. We offer afternoon tea here at the Phoenician 5 days a week. So Wednesday through Saturday, all the tea sandwiches are made on the other side really early in the morning. And then we have a couple production cooks that come in and they make the mix for the veal and black garlic meatballs. They make the soups. They make the sausage. They prepare all the vegetables. And we do have a butcher on property that fillets all the fish for us and handles all the meat fabrication. But for the most part, this is where the production is done for the several operations here in Old South. The Thirsty Camel, in-room dining, like I said, and Maury & Cotton. We got food delivered 6 days a week. 6 days a week. So we're always receiving, organizing, cleaning, preparing, executing. The individual chefs do their own ordering. My responsibility in that aspect is really to help decipher what products to order, at what price points, and make sure that we have the right menu mix. It's a weekly challenge, right? It's something that we have to manage now weekly versus maybe something we would manage monthly or quarterly, right? The prices fluctuate week to week right now, and it's been that way for a little bit, and we'll just continue to manage it the best to our ability. There have been supply chain issues where we've had to make some adjustments, but we're lucky we print menus in-house, and we have great connections and relationships with our vendors that, if there's something that is not available in the market or something that is just unreasonable from a price standpoint, that we can change and adapt pretty quick. My favorite piece of equipment, my goodness, I might have a few. One is a crowd vac machine. This I'll show you here. You'll see here. You can buy like food saver machines at home. This is fantastic for a couple different reasons. Okay, one, it helps you kind of preserve your product. 2, it helps, if you want to cure, pickle, preserve, if you want to impart flavors into a product. So this machine is pretty versatile and does a lot of things for us. It also helps us, like I said, preserve the product. So, if we have steaks or, items that we want to, remove the air from so it preserves it, that this is the right machine. A lot of different china, right? Because we service in-room dining, which has their own china. The Thirsty Camel, which is basically a 200-seat lounge, it has its own china, and Maury & Cotton, which is a 220-seat restaurant. So we have, a very large dish area. Okay? We're always washing, cleaning, and organizing. We probably have about $300,000 worth of china sitting in this kitchen just to service all those areas. Like I said, this is this is a pretty popular station. I think that interactive experience with the guest and the chef is very important. I think there's a lot of diners that are seeking that. A lot of, the demographic has changed. When the families come in, the kids love it because they can order flatbreads or little pizzas out of here. The business traveler, loves the ambiance and the feel. So this was a great addition to the restaurant when we reconcepted it a few years ago. And like I said, flatbreads are very popular. We have a great crisp flatbread dough that's made in-house by our pastry team. So we sell a lot of flatbreads. We have a rotational whole roasted fish out of this oven. Sometimes it's snapper, sometimes it's bass. Just depends on the time of year. Served whole at the table. Easy to share, which is very nice. We also have a couple vegetable dishes that come out of the oven. So this is a great station. It's fun, it's interactive, and it's a great visual, and it creates nice ambiance for the guests. I think 550 is a good temperature. It cooks the flatbreads just at a slightly lower temperature, which gets them nice and crisp without burning. Also gets a nice kind of roast and char in the vegetables without them getting too dark. So I think that seems to be a good temperature for us. Every dish that goes on every menu goes through a tasting process, kind of a panel process, so to speak. And it's always a collaboration. So obviously menu mix is important. We don't want to put something on the menu that's not going to sell or appeal to our demographic. Okay, and that changes sometimes throughout the year. Maybe summer versus fall, right? Obviously, the menu changes are seasonal in a restaurant. So, we want food to be, in order to get the best products, you have to buy seasonally. Right? I mean, butternut squash in the fall is very different than getting butternut squash in the spring, right? So, as an example, so there's certain things that you can get during the time of year that are a much better product because they're seasonal during that time of year. So obviously, having seasonal ingredients on a menu is very important. As we talked about earlier, just selecting and focusing on harvesting and finding and sourcing the best products for that time of year is most important and most critical. And then from there, that's how we build our menu, and then we put the flavors or what we following trends or whatnot. At the end of the day, trends come and go, and I think we always focus on product quality, simplicity, and execution. Those are the three fundamentals that really never change. With menu development, product execution. So those are the things that really never change for us and stay tried and true. And then obviously as we build the menus, we focus on seasonality and trends and of course execution. But yeah, every dish that goes on the menu goes through a tasting panel and a process and either gets checked off on or doesn't. And we monitor very, very closely the menu mix and what sells and what doesn't, and getting feedback from the guest. And if something's not working, and sometimes it doesn't, we make changes, and that's just the natural succession, I think, of any business, right? Whenever you're putting out a new product and it hopefully it works, and we can test all day long, but at the end of the day, if the guest doesn't like it, then it's not gonna stay on the menu very long. A lot of times, actually, we'll run specials and solicit feedback from the guests before we actually put it on the menu. It's another good way to feel something out. If we think it's great, but we're not, we might get a little some mixed reviews. Then we'll put it out there and get some feedback. So I would definitely start off with a couple Sonora-inspired cocktails and a Thirsty Camel, maybe with a ceviche or some empanadas, and just something small to kind of get your palate enthused, so to speak. And then, dining here either in Maury and Cotton or Jean-Georges Steakhouse. Jean-Georges is, of course, our signature restaurant, but it depends on the mood and kind of what you're looking for. Maury and Cotton is a little bit more relaxed atmosphere with big, bold flavors, and Jean-Georges, is a little bit more precise in execution and service, and probably a little longer dining experience. But I would go up there and have the tuna tartare and maybe a nice bone-in ribeye, or come down to Myron Cotton and have a flatbread and a whole roasted bass, and then finish off on the patio here at Myron Cotton with overlooking the pool at night with beautiful atmosphere and ambiance, and the fire going, and maybe ending it with a nice glass of wine or another cocktail of your choice. I've heard this before, and I truly believe it. If you can be a successful chef at a high level, you can be anything, right? Because you have to understand supply chain, you have to understand business philosophy, you have to understand work ethic. You have to have, in this business, if you don't have a strong work ethic, you don't survive. There's no way around it. There's no magic wand to be great. It's hard work and dedication to your craft. So yeah, as a young culinarian, I came up through fine dining. I was very inspired by food. I was very fortunate to be surrounded with great talent, great chefs and great mentors that kind of led me and kind of helped me understand the basic fundamentals of being a great chef. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, right? You focus on product quality first, simplicity, don't try and overthink it, and execution. Right, and understand your demographic and the trends. But yeah, sometimes you have to be an engineer. Sometimes you have to understand how to put your HR hat on and how to de-escalate certain situations, and how to be a team builder. You have to be a recruiter, a good recruiter. You're always recruiting for talent and developing talent. You have to be a good coach and a good trainer. You have to understand the trends and stay focused on what's happening in the marketplace. You have to be a relationship builder with your vendors and understanding constantly, yes, what's available, what's coming up, what are you growing, what can I get, does this make sense? Right now the beef market's going to uptick again in cost and price. So how do we adjust from a business standpoint? So like I said, there's a lot of things you have to do and manage, and a lot of components to being a successful leader and chef at a high level. And if you can do that and you can work your way towards that, I truly believe you can do anything.
It's so fortunate. We have such a great team that we all kind of contribute to things going on in town, new restaurants, a new attraction, things that have closed. So it's definitely a challenge, and it's not a one-person job. It's a team effort for sure.
So networking would be really important.
That the Lake Les D'Or theme, which is the worldwide concierge, is service through friendship. None of us can do this alone. I am currently in the application process, and so hopefully I will have my keys by Christmas. So the application process is you have to be a lobby concierge for 5 years continuously. And then you have to get 2 sponsors that are already Lake Les D'Or, that are here local in the concierge network. Then you have to get a letter of recommendation from your general manager, talking more about your personality and what you bring to the concierge team, as opposed to many accomplishments or what have you. It's really so that they get an idea of who you are. You then have to have a photograph of where you are at the desk, a photograph of your business card, because they all need to say concierge, which my card does, and we do have the concierge sign here. And then you put the application in, and what the membership committee does is reach out to other Lake Les D'Or concierge in the area and ask them, have you interacted with Jaime? Is she active with the concierge network? So on and so forth. And then they shop you. So they will come inconspicuously and shop you like a guest. And you get a score. And then if you get through all of that, you will then get a 100-question exam that comes in your email that is timed. You have exactly 14 days to complete the test. And it's not completable unless you reach out to other concierge. So it really does set up that service through friendship. The beauty of being a concierge is that restaurants, attractions, vendors all reach out to us and say, come and experience us. We have just recently Marcelino's, which is a higher end Italian restaurant in Old Town Scottsdale. They invited the entire team in 2 different nights to come and experience their menu, their service, their restaurant. And it really rejuvenated us to say, gosh, we got to remember Marcelino's, because I've probably got 5 great Italian restaurants within 5 miles of here. And so the restaurants, the attractions, the entire team went out last week. All 8 of us went out with one of our vendors, Duck Out, and we had a guided tour of Sedona and the wineries. I think being a concierge in hospitality is the best job that you can possibly have, because you get the opportunity to share what you love most about where you live with guests that are here for leisure travel, for business travel, that I have an entire day to I only have a 2-hour window. What can I do is the question I'm asked most often, and it's such an open-ended question because you're not sure what they really want to do, and so you have to really kind of pull it out as to what the expectations are of the time frame that they do have. Do they have transportation? Do they have children? Anybody with any kind of back issues? Is anybody pregnant? You know, just to go on a Jeep tour, you have to not have any of those ailments. You also have to know what the vehicles are that they'll be traveling in. And so it's truly the best job to be able to hit the nail right on the head of what I've suggested, them going, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now, everybody has access to the internet. And so they can literally stand right here while I make a restaurant recommendation and look up the menu. Look at photos of inside the restaurant. So they're just as educated as I am. I just have to narrow it down and tell them the real experience, because what we see online is not always true. Oh my gosh. So from here, we had a family of 4. So it was 2 children, mom and dad. And they wanted to fly for the day to go skiing in Colorado. So I had to arrange a private jet, transportation to the private jet, ski, the lift tickets, the whole 9 yards in Colorado, and arrange for their dinner there and the flight back, and of course transportation back here. And it was a money is no object scenario, but everybody that says money is no object is counting every penny. So you also have to be savvy spending everybody else's money. But that was probably the strangest request I had in regards to, and when would you like to do this? Oh, in an hour. Oh, okay. Concierge don't say no. We can say that might not be available. Let me offer you an alternative. Or that's not really what you're saying you want to do. Trust me when I tell you, you really want to do this. And then tell them why and let them make their own decisions. And again, everybody can look everything up online. The biggest thing now is, what vendors do you use? Well, of course, we want to make those reservations for our guests so that we can monitor their itinerary the entire time to make sure you can't come back from a tour at 8 o'clock. You have 7:45 dinner reservations. We have to either change your dining reservation, or your tour excursion of something that will get you back here at a better time. It is like putting together a puzzle while juggling, 4 things of fire at the same time, and keeping your professional manner, and of course representing your resort to the fullest. So letting our guests know what we have to offer here for them, that's going to make their life easier, things they may not even realize that we do offer. You have to make sure to provide that to the guest. And yes, it's a constant juggle of what we do and how we do it and who we work with that I had no idea which ski resort in Colorado and what was closest to the airport. I called a concierge at a different resort that's out there that specializes in skiing. So I had to do research quickly and make some phone calls. But no, nothing ever happens easily at the concierge desk, but we make it look easy and seamless. Sometimes not. Sometimes a thank you is enough, and sometimes we get blessed with a monetary gratuity, but no, that's not why we do what we do. Generally, there is no expectation of a gratuity. We are compensated by the resort. We are compensated by some of our vendors for booking with them. We get something back for that, but we don't book certain companies over others because of a gratuity. We're looking for the best experience for our guests, and if that comes back with a little, pat on the back or a monetary a compensation, great. And all depending on where you're a concierge makes the difference. The experience in Vegas, they have shows, they have restaurants. I mean, it's all about the Strip. Here, it's all about the state of Arizona. And we have some incredible things to experience right here. Everything from the Grand Canyon down to Tombstone and everything in between. You can go up and visit wineries in Page Springs, in Jerome, in Cottonwood. We have such a rich history in the state of Arizona, the Great 48, in how this land was developed and the gold mining that's here and the different excavation of gems, of course the Native American history that's here, the cowboy history that's here. You can go into Old Town Scottsdale, which we are so fortunate to just be a few miles away from. There's a great museum called the Spirit of the West Museum. Even taking smaller children just to see the photos of the way it was as, the gold mining, the gold rush and all of that. We have species of animals that are here and only here. I mean, nowhere else are you going hiking where we have bunnies and birds and snakes and scorpions and tarantulas and Gila monsters and chacualas, and we have such a great variety of birds. And for someone that wants to experience that and not actually go hiking in the desert, which is a little bit more my speed, we have the Desert Botanical Gardens, which is amazing. And they always have music, or they have an installation. Just recently, they just took down the Chihuly installation that was there for a few months, which was incredible. We also have a wonderful historic history in regards to architecture. We have Taliesin West. I mean, the influence that Frank Lloyd Wright had here in town. So it's such an interesting state to be in. You can go up and close to the Grand Canyon, and you can zip line over a wildlife conservatory. I mean, it's crazy. You can go to the wildlife conservatory here. You can set up a tour in advance and get a great tour of the kinds of animals that we have here, that we're saving, making sure that their population doesn't go away. I mean, it blows my mind regularly, and our team is so diverse. People from their very early 20s to their mid 60s and everything in between. Everybody brings something different to the table regarding experiences here. There are some that are daredevils. They'll do everything. And then there are people like myself who just tell me about it. I'm good. I mean, I'd be more than happy to share that with my guests, but I don't necessarily have to do anything, because a concierge team, regardless of what resort you're at, is always a team effort. If there is a break in that, it doesn't work as well. It's not all for one, I'm in it for myself. It's we all are working together.
Here at the Phoenician, we're very lucky. We've had this property, well, it's been was built about 34 years ago. We have a master cellar that carries about 4,000 different labels, close to 1 to 2 million in inventory of wine. We've been very lucky to have one of the only master somms in the state work at this property. He worked here for probably about 15 years, which, to put it in perspective, there's only about, maybe 400 or so now master sommeliers in the world. So we were very lucky to have him here. We have wines from everywhere from Lebanon to Spain, Hungary, France, every region you could expect, curated over the last 30 years. So there's a lot of hidden gems on our master list and in our cellar. So with that being said, I also run the wine program here at the property. I worked alongside our master somm that used to work here for a few years. I started in restaurant management, and the moment I found out there was an opening at the Phoenician, I jumped on it, knowing, as a somm, this is really the property you want to be at when it comes to wine and how vast and amazing our wine list is. I kind of jumped on the opportunity. So they do allow me to teach these fun little wine tastings for guests and anyone else that would like to join once a week. You've all been exposed now to the monk, the original owner of this property. The idea behind this room was he loved to go to Spain. That's one of his favorite countries. He wanted the guests to walk in and see the glass stained windows and be able to feel as if you were in Spain. Kind of set apart from the rest of the hotel. You come in here and nothing else in this hotel looks like this. So what better place to host these wine tastings than in this private dining room? We've had many private meetings in this room. Senators come in and out having private meetings. It's got a lot of history here. We have a lot of excellent bottles of wine that you'll see kind of put all over on the top areas of wines that we've opened from all different years. Just some really special stuff. But yeah, so today I usually try and stick with a general theme. Today I thought we would do Alexander Valley, Carneros, mostly Sonoma and parts of Napa. I'll go through what to look for, how to taste a wine appropriately, what temperatures to serve it at, things like that, and then just give a brief story about the wine, the history behind the winery, and hopefully you can take home some fun stories to your families or friends and share that with them. So I am a certified specialist of wine. I manage all the bars and lounges at the Phoenician, as well as their very robust wine program. We carry about 4,000 different labels in our master cellar. I also help curate all of the wine lists in every department. I also assist, we wear many hats. I also run a lot of the bar operations as well. My skill set is definitely more utilized for ordering of wine, which requires a lot of tasting, a lot of meeting with different sales reps, and also making sure that the wines that we're purchasing are cost effective and therefore going to produce the most profit for our hotel. Also to make sure that we are investing in the right wines, wines that are going to cellar and only get better with age. We have the facility to be able to do it. We have a temperature controlled fingerprint scanner entry master cellar located on property. I've worked here for probably about 7 years total now. I worked at J&G for 5 years before I left and came back for 2020. I think we all left and came back in 2020, or left at some point. But during that time that I was here prior, when we were doing inventory one time, I had just started working here, and I accidentally dropped our oldest bottle of wine.
And you're confessing to that?
I am confessing. I am confessing.
Brave.
My old boss, so funny. I looked at it and the wine dropped. I think it was a bottle of port from 1912. It was insane. Shattered everywhere on the ground, and I was just looking at it wanting to cry. And my boss I'm like, oh my God, I hope no one saw me. And my boss is, of course, right around the corner, and he comes over and he just starts laughing. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. And then on his last day when he left, he saved the cork and he gave it to me on his way out. So I still have it sitting on my desk as a reminder to be very careful when I'm counting wine in the cellar. So
do you think quality control is your biggest responsibility?
yes. Also cost control, making sure that we are pricing said wines correctly, so that we can ensure the wines are sold at the right price. A lot of it is controlling inventory, making sure that we aren't over purchasing one particular region, and that our wine list and our cellar is really covering every part of the world. Also, a big part of my job, is in particular as it relates to wine, is being able to pick and select wines that best fit a certain operation. Every outlet at the Phoenician has a very specific story for our guests, and we want to maintain that story and keep that authentic. So I try and, for example, Maori and Cotton is our American with different parts of the world. It's kind of fused together, lots of bold spices, but I have chosen to keep all American wine in this particular outlet. And then J&G is our traditional steakhouse, so they tend to have a little bit more vast of a wine list, a little bit more worldly. Thirsty Camel Lounge is somewhere where every guest can enjoy a quick glass of wine. So we want to serve wines there that are more approachable to every palate, maybe not so focused on one region, but more the guest. And then the Tavern is our burger bistro. They are mostly beer driven with their tap and beer program, but selecting wines that are going to complement some of the dishes that they have there is also important. But each restaurant has an identity, and I try and help keep that identity and keep that concept rich and authentic.
So you would be checking each venue to see how sales are going?
Yes, what items are not moving, what items are moving very quickly, general trends, what certain times of year and events we have coming up that might bring in guests from other parts of the world. Maybe they have a different palate in comparison to some of our other guests. So I try and research that on a regular basis. We also have a lot of larger functions here on property, so I do help select a lot of the wines for those larger functions. So making sure that these wineries have enough inventory for groups that are 900 people. Right now in the industry, it is just like anywhere right now in anything, it's very tough to manage inventory and getting product imported from other parts of the world. So I'm constantly trying to bring in new product that might not be something that our guests have seen before, but something that we can consistently keep inventory of. So it's a constant, okay, well, we don't have this anymore. What can we find that's comparable? There's a lot of that. I manage a lot of the menu maintenance, vintage changes. Not every vintage is the same. Sometimes you'll get vintages, even though it's the same bottling, that just is completely different than the last. So maintaining consistency is very important as well. So we do inventory once a quarter, which is once every 3 months. We do a massive inventory of everything on property. During that inventory process, I solely focus on we have our master cellar, and then we also have an upper cellar. And then we have to manage our PARs accurately. So every couple months, we do a PAR evaluation to make sure that we're not over ordering product and vice versa. So a lot of it is learned. A lot of it is based on knowledge and just tasting over and over and over again. But women have 1,000 more taste buds than men. That is a scientific fact. So we tend to be much more attuned to our senses of smell and taste. That's probably why most men gravitate towards Scotch and bourbon. That's not to say that I love bourbon. That's great. But, and whereas women gravitate towards maybe vodka, tequila, gin, we can pick up on those flavor profiles much easier. So some people are definitely born with it. They are. At J&G and Maori and Cotton, we do a lot of tastings and menu pairings to make sure that our Wine by the Glass program is fitting closely with what foods we're featuring. You know, J&G has a lot of scallops, shrimp, but they also have big robust steaks, and they use a lot of Asian fusion in their food offerings. So tasting through some of those dishes is imperative. I actually have a tasting next week for an event coming up in October where we're tasting through literally their entire program, and I'm presenting different wines for each dish, and then we'll come to a cohesive decision on what pairs with what to decide what we're going to serve at their event. So there's a lot of that too. For J&G Steakhouse, we are awarded since 2017, the Best of Award of Excellence from the Wine Spectator, which is the highest tier before you get into the Master Award, which is usually reserved for, we've thought about presenting our cellar list for the Master Award, which you have to touch almost every part of the world and be very robust and have multiple different vintages. We haven't submitted for that yet. That doesn't mean we won't eventually, but our J&G Steakhouse has gotten that award many years. Where all of our special stuff lingers, 1969, 1966. I just got these. So sometimes vineyards or different estates will release older vintages at a different time. They'll hold on to these, and when the bottle itself is in perfect condition. Just amazing that they've released. That is, you can ensure has been stored correctly, since they bottled it. So there's just some really, I just got these literally the other day.
Excited down here?
I do. I get excited. This is a lot of the stuff that I have been buying. Some of this stuff isn't even on our list yet. Obviously, I'm trying to buy up as much quality wine over the last few years. Some really special stuff. We have over here, we have some of our bubbles, which, for example, so we have 1975 Dom. We have all verticals of different Dom. 1978. Some beautiful. What's this about here? This is a bottle of Krug. It's obviously been here a long time.
That is really special. So who would know that you have this bottle and order it? I mean, who would know that?
I know. So we encourage our guests, we tell our servers as well as our bartenders, we do have a master list. So we encourage them to tell our guests about this master list. You can ask for it at any of our outlets. It can be a big list for a lot of people, but this is where you will find most of our hidden gems on property. Before Chateau Montalina, we have a ton of old. Where is it? Let's see. 1981 Camus. This is all of our California and New World, but there's some 1983. These are some of my favorites. The Dollavale Maya, 1998. And then this actually is a piece of artwork. The Phoenician, the original owner, he collected a lot of artwork. We call her Circe. This is from, I think, the 1400s. It's the only art piece that's left. All of the rest of it was sold when the property was seized. And this was one of the only ones that we got to keep. So we put it up here in our master cellar. And then we do have scanners now. So that's why you'll see all of our, we're in the process of going full on to scanners. So we have barcodes for everything now. It's taken us a while to get it all organized, and this region you have mostly Barossa, Shiraz. There's some excellent Australian wine back here that is aged beautifully. What's to come potentially, that supply will continue to dwindle. So my boss supports me in getting the product that we need to keep our guests having this beautiful wine list that they can enjoy in the future.
And the supply dwindling is due mainly to what?
Not being able to employ people on the vineyard, a lot of climate change and supply chain. A lot of it is drivers, finding drivers. I know that a lot of our distributors are having issues getting drivers that want to drive their products. And a lot of other industries are experiencing that right now. So, and with the high amount of business we're expecting in 2023 with the Super Bowl, and here in Arizona, our business really hits starting in September, October, and it goes all the way through until May. So, and those are cooler, almost perfect months. So this hotel is very, very lively during that time. So I am anticipating this year we're having probably one of the biggest years we've had in 30 years, revenue-wise and guest-wise.
This is a male Harris's hawk. They are indigenous to this area. Actually, they're along the U.S.-Mexico border, so they're a desert bird. And this species is unique in that they stay in large family groups. They will together cooperatively hunt an animal like a jackrabbit. It's the only raptor in the U.S. that will do that.
So is jackrabbit their favorite food?
Anything small enough to catch, that's their favorite food. But together, collectively, they can all take a big jackrabbit. Just him by himself, that's way too big. He only needs a couple of ounces of food a day to maintain his weight over 24 hours. So a jackrabbit would be way overkill. A couple mice would do him for a daily ration.
So what do you feed them when?
Day-old chickens, cockerel males, or mice, quail. If they catch game and hunting legally, of course, when they're hunting, then they get to eat what they caught. But just a balanced diet, whole animal diet is what they need. Since they have a crop which allows them to digest bone, so they eat food that stays in the crop and then they slowly pass food to the stomach, like an owl. They don't have a crop, so whenever they eat something, it goes straight to the stomach, and then they regurgitate the feathers, fur, or bone. Hawks and falcons, eagles, they would regurgitate just feather and fur. They can digest the bone.
And where does he stay when he's not on your arm?
He has an enclosure in my backyard, a large 10-foot by 10-foot enclosure with several perches on it.
So it's off property. You bring him onto the property.
Correct. He's my own bird. He's my property. And the little gold band on his leg that you see, that shows he's from a private breeder. So he's not a wild bird. Yeah, they're also unique because they'll do backstanding. You'll see that down in Tucson. One bird will land on the top of a cactus, and then like another bird would land on his back, and another. You'll have 3 or 4 standing on their backs, backstanding. Desert, not a lot of places to perch. And then the female would typically be on top because the females are larger. But then if they see like a jackrabbit or something they all want to hunt, then one kick off, they'll start taking off, and they coordinate their hunt.
So how many birds do you have?
I have 5. I have 4 of these, and then a little falcon. Really to keep the small birds away from the restaurant, the dining area, but with the rain, there's birds there waiting to come in for food.
So if you stand out here, they won't come in. The small birds won't come in?
They will. Kind of like playing cat and mouse. They know if I'm here, then they're safe over there. So then if I go over there, then they'll go over here, but
So what made you decide to have birds? I mean, what was your interest in birds?
I like animals. As a kid, I remember Marlon Perkins. He was my idol. I wanted to grow up to be him. This is close.
Do you have to have a special license to have
It's
birds?
a U.S. Fish and Wildlife permit you have. It's regulated by each state. It's enforced by each state. It's really U.S. Fish and Wildlife falconry regulations that has been adapted. For example, I'm from the north. Harris hawks are indigenous to this area. So falconers here, I believe they can trap a Harris hawk from the wild for doing falconry. Raptors 70% die first year. So falconers, if they trap a bird from the wild, it's a juvenile bird because U.S. Fish and Wildlife has already determined 70% they're dead. They're not gonna make it for a full year. So falconry, they determine as a zero impact on wild population since so many perish. I have seen like red tails that I've gotten in the north, big fields of like briars and tall grass. A red tail will fly out over the field, maybe 100 feet up, and then they'll see a rabbit on the ground. It's flying out, and then it'll do a wing over and then straight down to catch the rabbit. Well, when the hawk reaches the ground, the rabbit's 2 feet ahead. So then they learn that doesn't work very well. It's pretty, but it doesn't work well. So they'll do a tail chase. So they just perfect their skills as they get older.
Oh, okay, so
So falconers, long story short, falconers, they get a juvenile bird and then they allow the bird to perfect what it does, and then they release the bird back into the wild 2 years, 3 years later in the bird's breeding age. So it has a better chance of making it. They're afraid of anything that's bigger than them. So the first thought is, okay, they're gonna eat me. Because they catch everything to eat, so therefore me being bigger, I'm gonna eat him. Well, he's realized that I'm not going to eat him, so he isn't worried about me. And like I can have him on my bare hand. He's not squeezing. The only reason he would bear down is if he was trying to kill and eat something, or if he was afraid. Kind of like whenever a hawk is hit by a car, and the person runs up, I'm gonna save the little animal, like from Bambi or something. They think it's like a cartoon animal, and the hawk sees this monster coming at them. So of course, whenever they reach down, the hawk is going to protect themselves.
So how often do they feed during the day?
I feed him daily. When we're working, I'll feed him small pieces of food, equaling a certain amount of food that I've rationed out for the day to keep him at his hunting weight, his working weight. Kind of like you and I, if we eat a large meal for Thanksgiving and then we go out with friends to go dine, we're not gonna eat anything. But if we don't eat and then we go out with our friends to dine, then we're gonna eat more. Well, if he's not hungry, then he's not gonna wanna work. Hawks, whenever they're flying, every wing beat is a calorie burn. So they prefer not to fly, even though we always think, if we had wings, we'd fly
yeah.
everywhere. Like, how many of us are marathon runners? We have the capability of it, but not too many of us.
So I'm Mirna Juarez. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Horticulture here at the Phoenician, and I would love to show you our beautiful cactus garden. So here's the entrance to the cactus garden. We're greeted, of course, by these beautiful golden barrels. These are exclusive and special to the Sonoran Desert, and they're one of my favorite plants. They add that beautiful yellow color to the landscape. They almost look like little ottomans or seat cushions. Don't sit on them. They are not comfy, but they're beautiful. As you can see, we have some of the rain from the monsoon still, in them. Down there, I want to point out a couple of our older beautiful specimens here. This is our Oregon pipe cactus. As you can see, they grow very, very tall, up to 20 feet tall, some of them. And just a beautiful structure. This one's been here for quite some time. And this garden was originally built with the original landscape of the resort in the 80s. And the ravine that you see behind here was actually put in place to mitigate some of the monsoon rains and to keep it from flooding the resort. So it has a very practical reason to be here, but turned out to be a very beautiful place in the resort, and we're very thankful for that. And so here also we have the jojoba. Jojoba is a plant that is especially adapted to the desert. So the kind of film that you see on the leaves here creates like a powdery, grayish tone to it. So like adding that layer actually creates what we call the albedo effect. So like when you paint the roof of a greenhouse white, it's so the light bounces off, right? So this plant is one of the places that we learned that from. So with this lighter color that it has on it, the light bounces off and it doesn't absorb as much of the sun and doesn't get burnt. It's so good actually at surviving in the desert that this plant is being used in India to kind of stave off the desertification, keep deserts from growing. They plant it on the perimeter, and it does so well that it keeps that desert from expanding. Really can't say enough about the resources that the plants in the desert really do have for us as humans, and so many lessons to learn about their adaptability. Here we have a Mexican giant. They are, similar to the saguaro, not the same, but there's a couple of them here, and you can see they grow very, very tall. I think it just depends on their water intake as they grow. It's a type of cactus, very similar to the saguaro, but it's a different species. And here we have the very special totem pole cactus. That's the only one that I recommend touching. But touching it helps us understand what the actual flesh of these cactuses are like, and help us understand a little bit about, how they're very, very good at keeping moisture in. Over here we see the Peruvian snowball. And if you notice, up on top, the little spines on them, to me it looks a little more like fur than snow. But you see there's more of it on the west side of the plant. And that's due to the fact that the setting sun is a lot stronger and hotter than the rising sun. And so that plant's adapted itself. The spines are for protection from the sun. They actually are adapted leaves. And so that snowball, the Peruvian snowball, is protecting itself from that setting sun like that. They're called quiver trees, but it's a type of aloe. They're a really beautiful structure. We have a few in this area. This is an example that I put together just, with succulent arrangements being so popular, that this is something that you could do and bring into your home. The key, of course, is to give it very little water. And so, depending on the size of the pot, 2 to 4 ounces of water every month is plenty for most succulents and cactus. This back here is actually a ponytail palm. The ponytail palm is actually a lot better at holding water than cactus. This can actually go several months without water and it'll be fine. And that's of course due to the incredibly large bulb at the bottom. And these can be found as houseplants as well, but you could see by the size of this one's quite a few decades old. And here's an example of an agave that has gone to flower. And as you could see, they only flower once in their lifetime. So once they're done flowering, then the agave will dry up and die. But before it does that, I think when it knows that it's going to be at the end of its life, then it will grow all of these beautiful pups around the edge. And this is a type of a cotillo, beautifully leafed out. Don't let that foliage fool you though. Every leaf has a very strong spine that comes along with it. palo verde. And of course, these are, all over the landscape. You've probably already noticed them. But it's good to notice that the leaves are so small that the surface of the leaf wasn't enough for this tree to photosynthesize. So the adaptation is that it turned all of its bark green. And so then now it can photosynthesize from all of its bark.
I'm the horticulture director, so I oversee the grounds for all the landscape, all the plant life, some of the hardscape materials, walkways, and stuff like that. So, and I work with Mirna, and we have a team of about 21 people. Everything. So we have a lot of native landscape that we maintain, and that's actually less maintenance than everything else we have. A lot of you see. They planted a lot of like ficus and other tropical plants here in the 80s when this was built. So those tend to be a lot more maintenance than the native plants. So most of the stuff here you see, it's native, so very low maintenance. A lot of the work goes into the flowers too, our flower beds, just maintaining them, making sure that they're doing well with the heat, and all the water systems are working and everything's getting irrigated. So it's a lot of tracking, but it does take a lot of walking around, which we enjoy, and checking areas, making notes and stuff like that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't.
So this one, it's not the best looking one. That's some of the better looking ones there. But that's agave tequiliana. That's the agave that they originally made tequila from. So it is from Jalisco, Mexico. So and there's only about 5 or 6 agaves that they use for tequila production, but this is one of the kind of the classic plants that they use. So if you go down there, you'll see entire fields around the old haciendas.
Chain fruit cholla, also nicknamed jumping cholla. Yeah. And so this plant gets that nickname from just being, eliminating one of its limbs when it gets disturbed. And so it's kind of like a defense mechanism, but also another way of propagating itself. If a coyote comes by and gets a limb of these on his tail and then later on it falls off, then it'll take root. This is creosote bush. This is actually an ancient plant. It's been on Earth for like 8,000 years. And here the local tribes, the Yaqui, use these in some of their ceremonies and also medicinally. But I really love the smell of it. I'll encourage you to. Very oily surface of the leaves gives off a smell that's very similar to rain, in my opinion.
Sure, yes. So, and this is extremely common. Like, this is one of the species that you see a lot in the desert. So if you drive from here to Tucson, like you see mesquite and palo verde, and then a lot of creosote. So, and like Mirna said, when it rains here, you get that particular smell. That's what you're smelling. Some people like it a lot that they'll take clippings and hang it in their bathroom. When they take a shower, you can smell it because the vapor releases that odor. And it's an extremely tough plant too. It can survive a lot of drought. It doesn't seem to be affected by frost either. And Mirna probably mentioned this at the beginning, but everything that's out here has some kind of defense mechanism. So that obviously the thorns are a deterrent for a lot of plants. These are there's no thorns. This is sort of a very friendly plant, if you will. So there's no thorns, but the way that it protects itself, it's very oily, like Mirna said, and it keeps the oil repels the water inwards on the leaves, so it doesn't lose a lot of water when it's super hot and dry. And then also it does have a lot of antiviral properties. So back in school, I remember reading some articles about this, and it was a fascinating plant. So. It's a Mexican fence post cactus. Very common too. You see it a lot in a lot of older homes. It's even in new landscape and design magazines. You'll see it in the potted. And it's neat. Back in some places in Mexico where it grows naturally, they use it as a fence. Hence the name Mexican fence post cactus. So you can cut the arms off of it and replant them in a straight line. and they do very well. There's some places, I've been to Oaxaca, Mexico, where if you go to the Central Plaza, there's a church, an old church, that has the gardens, and they're all surrounded by a fence of natural living cactus, which is super neat. This is the ironwood. So another one that's extremely common. So basically there's 3 or 4 main tree species in the lower desert here. So mesquite, palo verde, acacia, and then ironwood is another one that you see a lot. So ironwood is hence the name. The wood is very dense, it's very heavy. It's extremely tough. It can survive with very little water. Again, one of the adaptations, the small leaves. The smaller the leaf, the less water they lose out here. That's why when you go to tropical places, you see broad leaves, and they don't ever worry about how much water they lose. So a lot of stuff is going to have, a lot of these plants are going to have the very small leaves, and that's one way to tell, if they're native or not to this place. So. It does have a little bit of thorns too. As it gets old or older, the trunk becomes, instead of grayish, it'll turn kind of dark, and then loosens a lot of the thorns. But where you see gray, you still have small thorns. Oh, can I talk about the elephant tree?
Yeah.
I didn't tell them.
Is this his favorite?
I wrote my thesis on the elephant tree. So I always joke that I wrote the book on that. So no, so that's my graduate school thesis. I went a little crazy and spent 5 years researching this tree. So you'll run out of battery if you let me talk to it. So, but no, it's pretty neat. It's actually native to here, which is a little bit out of its range. The family of elephant trees basically grows farther into Mexico. So as you go from northwest Colombia all the way to Phoenix, that's their range. As you get more towards the tropics or the central Mexico area, the species and the genera that's there, it's a lot more tropical, so they're much bigger. Phoenix happens to be the northernmost point where they grow. They're extremely sensitive to frost. So anything farther from here will kill them, basically. And like Mirna said, this is my plant. I study the population at South Mountain, at the White Tanks, the Horticulturalists, and I did research on where they grow, why they grow there, how much heat and drought they can take. So I had a lot of sensors in place and measure a lot of temperature readings. But it's really interesting. One takeaway is that out of hundreds of plants that I study, there was only one that grows or was growing on the north slope of the mountain. Everything was growing on the south because it requires that heat. So, but it's really neat. It tends to get damaged by frost, so they start as a single trunk. Every few years they get damaged, they die back down to the base, and then they start putting out more trunks. So after a few years, the trunks look a little deformed, and hence the name, the elephant tree, because it looks like an elephant foot because they're so deformed. And then it's very interesting as far as the way it protects itself. Again, no thorns on this one. It looks very friendly. But see the peely bark on it? It's a way to fight off anything that a fungus that might land on the bark and try to get into the tree. It'll shed it off by peeling itself.
It goes by another name, a common name called copal tree, and the copal is actually the resin from this tree, and we use that in Native Mexican ceremonies, and so I've been using it for years, and it's used for purification and strength. When the limbs are severed or broken, it's almost like pine sap will come out. And so that's the resin from the tree. And they are protected, so you can't just come out and harvest that. You have to have a permission. And so I buy mine from Mexico. As I was mentioning when we saw the prickly pears, the prickly pear is a significant resource, a significant food, but also just very significant to the culture of the Sonoran Desert. And here we see that in this beautiful sculpture by Alan Hauser It's called Desert Harvest, and you'll see that she's holding a plate of prickly pears that she's just harvested. And so it's just a beautiful image to, just brings home that point of how incredibly special that food source is to the cultures that reside in the desert. As I was saying, that the spines are like leaves, right? They're adapted leaves. And the way that we tell different cactus apart, one of the ways to identify them is just by their spines, right? The type of spine, the orientation, the shape that they're in. And so this is a paper spine cactus. Okay, so you're not gonna get one of those stuck in your skin. The point of the spines on a cactus, they are to protect themselves from animals eating them, but they also are for shade. And they actually provide shade to the flesh of the cactus. And here you see some mammillarias. These are beautiful little feral cactus, and these are actually in flower. Beautiful little pink flowers. The Queen Victoria is doing something similar to the jojoba plant, as it has these little white, almost like piping on a cake that it adapted for itself, and so that helps to reflect the light away. And back here, of course, we see the very all popular aloe vera, right? That it grows like mint. It spreads and spreads, and we have way too much of it. We have a special specimen called the Zulu giant, and this is actually a plant from South Africa. And fortunately, it's not in flower right now, but when it is in flower, those flowers emit the smell of rotting flesh to attract pollinators. And we missed the one on the entrance, but this yucca plant doesn't let us miss it. So I have to warn you not to, because it just decided to grow into the path. But this beautiful plant is used for basket weaving, but also referred to as soap plant. The roots are used for soap. So if you wet the roots and froth them up, they will suds up. And here across the way we have saguaro skeleton. So it didn't die here, but it was left here, or it was brought here as an example, so that you could see, the ribs of the saguaro are very much wood. They're very strong wood. On the inside, it's almost like cork. So this is a good example to, opportunity to get up close. And on a tour, one of the guests was really surprised that it was actual wood in there. That's the ribs of the saguaro are the only way that something so heavy can stay upright for so many years. But also, this is a resource that the local tribe here, the Pima tribe, the Salt River people, have adapted and used it in building their homes. So it is very strong and durable. This is our teddy bear cholla. I joke with kids on the tour sometimes. Would you like to hug this teddy bear? They go, no. But they look really quite soft and furry from a distance. And so saguaros will grow their first limb anywhere between 50 to 75 years old. So it gives you an idea of how old these saguaros are here.
That's a plant that you also see that's very iconic to the Southwest, of course, and you see it in old westerns, and you can usually tell when a movie is filmed because they'll show one of those and it's close to home for us. And they're great. They're super heavy too, so sometimes you see people move them in the landscape. It's quite a project to do that. They're usually about 100 pounds per linear foot on a full-size saguaro, so you could imagine, if you measure the height and how many limbs, it gives you an idea of the amount of weight that's in there. And most of it is water. It's one of the very few cactus that has what it's called a rib cage. So it's got, I don't know if you guys saw, there's one up here that we'll see, but it's got kind of a spine or a backbone, if you will, because it has to support all that weight and all that water.
And here's speaking of westerns, cowboy red whiskers, prickly pear that still actually has fruit on it. That's one of the food sources from the desert that is the most, I tend to call it like the cherry on top, right? Very delicious fruit, very good for you as well.
Have you made jelly out of that fruit?
I don't. I eat it fresh.
Oh, you
I don't bother making it into jelly. They're just
And
so
you get
good.
all those little spines off, you just peel them off. Is there a
Yep.
trick to that?
There actually is. My mom, has done it since she was a little girl, and so she'll slice it on, what's still on there. She'll slice it open and take out the fruit and just leave the shell on there. That was kind of something that she was known for doing, and that's not the way you should do it. You should remove it all the way, but it's something that in my family we've done since I can remember. And so there is prickly pear syrup used in like the Phoenician iced teas you could get at the restaurants at Thirsty Camel as well. And I believe they have prickly pear margarita.
You can also burn the blockets, if you will, off of them, and then it'll be a lot easier to peel. So yeah.
So burn them like with an open fire.
Yeah, or if you have a kitchen torch or something like that, so that can be